here doing a little coffee break. We wanted to get into everything project, whether it's process, whether it's tool, best practices out there. Both of us have been around the block a bit, and we're really here to answer some of those questions. I have a few questions for Jeff myself, and I'm sure he might have a few to bounce off me. But we really wanted to open this up, from a community perspective and really get your questions answered as we go through this. So we've unmuted everybody on the call through Zoom. So you can also send your questions if you want to through the Q&A, and we'll be monitoring those. So Jeff, a little intro for you. You want to go ahead and say a quick hello? And
Sure.
We'll get started.
So I'm titled as Solution Specialist for Microsoft, which means I focus on all of our work and project management tools, include project, all of our Office 365 tools for collaboration, including Teams, and more recently the Power Platform. So happy to join.
Excellent. Now, Jeff, from your perspective, sitting where you're sitting in the manufacturing, but also going across some of those other industries, I was curious right now if you've seen any recent trends that are out there, especially given we just went through this mass mobilization or digital transformation to get people working from home. Then we sort of settled a little bit. Kids started to get back to school in some areas, and dare I say, we're sort of in this routine now. Have you seen anything impact on the business side in and around the PMO?
Definitely seen impact. I would say the couple big things that come to mind is one, I think just before we went in the pandemic, there was a great set of conversations and differentiation between, I'll call it the traditional or old school project management, and then obviously the agile and new project management. I do think that one of the neat things about the coming out of the pandemic or the current environment we're at, where there's been a little bit of settling, is that the two have definitely come together. I think that we recognize that perhaps most project management now is not so much what we would have called waterfall. I think it's what I would think of as like lily pad Gantt charting, meaning that we're going from one area of safe haven or firm ground, maybe a lily pad, to the next stage of a project plan, which shows a level of completion, but there's a lot of unknowns still. So it does have a feeling of agile-like delivery, but I think what we've recognized is that we're expecting so much more coordination amongst the organization that we're not just allowing agile teams to run off and kind of progress to the end of their epic or sprint. There's a lot more check-in back to a broader strategy or a more holistic portfolio, because I think everybody is constantly adjusting. So I think we've really had this situation where perhaps portfolio planning and at least some sort of holistic project office exists. But now what we're allowing the teams to do is really, move forward in sprints, but with less dramatic responsibilities of a scrum team or coordinating off resources, and that's the only format they work. So that's one of the more recent things I've seen, is this real openness to embrace the benefits of both methodology types. And I even see the traditional agile teams kind of coming back to a little bit more normalcy and not given quite as much freedom as they once were. So that's one observation right now that maybe has come out in the last 90 days.
That was interesting, what you were talking about with the different methodologies, especially, the search for the different teams. We've seen a trend, that around how we're managing different projects. And it's this whole thing about a team. We're talking about maybe just the process, but also the actual technology out there. And with Microsoft Teams in particular, a lot of folks are using that collaboration space. And we as a vendor of Microsoft are hearing a lot of people come in saying, hey, we are a Microsoft shop, or we're thinking of becoming a Microsoft shop. What's all included in that offering? And then they sort of say, okay, here's our bag of tricks. And Jeff, and I remember going on to clients, a couple of years back and saying, what are you currently using? And they'd list off, Excel is the #1 competitor. But then they get into some of these online things like Smartsheet and Asana and Monday.com and a few others that are out there. And now they're saying, hey, just like similar, it's happening to all of us with all of us old folks that are still on cable. They have to start now streaming to all these different services that are out there, right? And now you're saying, well, what just happened? I went from cable, but now I need to go to Peacock, and I got to go to this, and I got to go to that. They want to consolidate into one area. And what we're seeing is with Teams, you can sort of make that transition and say, bring your tools that you're currently using, and then we'll start to potentially phase those out if and when you need to. And my question for you, Jeff, is around that. Are you finding that, sort of the Teams is driving some of that methodology and some of those, the search for a Scrum team or search for that core team that you mentioned?
Well, I think a couple things come to mind. One is certainly where people start the day is where you have to capture their attention. So for most Microsoft-centric organizations, Teams is where people are logging in the morning, and really, if they don't kind of find it there, it becomes sort of a difficult scenario to engage an extended team without putting it in MS Teams to start with. And like you said, if that means delivery is being done perhaps in other tools, you better pin them into Teams, or you're not going to necessarily get organization. So there's this collaboration element that has to be placed in. Used to be email. I think now Teams is more centric. And then the other thing I see is that, again, maybe it's just the velocity out we're all running at today, but nobody has a really good line of sight on how much formality is going to be necessary, and which ideas or which projects are going to be tiny ones and which ones are going to be large ones. Mm-hmm. So this idea of picking a tool, like if you picked Basecamp because it seemed to be a little software development project, all of a sudden that evolves into, well, it's really a product platform discussion, and now you need more capability. So I do think we're hearing from customers that, infrastructure, software, business change management, maybe even customer engagement, it's unclear which tool is the right pick. So there's some comfort in saying, at least with a Microsoft platform, you can kind of ramp up and ramp down, kind of disengage and engage the right participants through the life cycle of a project without being kind of moving between vendors of products. So that certainly works to our benefit, whether it's, Teams, Planner, Project for Web, Project Online, or desktop, and certainly our DevOps platform. You're not necessarily locked into any one of those for the life of the project. So yeah, we're seeing a bunch of that. Still a lot of, we call them competitive products. They're picked usually because of ease of startup, where people believe the team is more self-service. I think people are really becoming comfortable with Microsoft platform now, and with the introduction of we think Power Apps and Power Platform, that self-serve, self-managed environment is probably easier than ever. You've probably seen the difference in how customers ask you to configure things. We're all pretty much, investing enough time just to get through the quarter, get through the next couple months. So there's not a big platform play with regard to configuration. So it's very project specific.
Sure. I want to turn my, to those folks that are on live here today. How are you seeing that in your organizations? Are you seeing folks navigate to these collaborative systems, or are you still using the tried and true project management solution that you're using? I want to see if maybe Steve or someone want to comment on that.
Well, I can jump in real quick. We're a really small shop, and we are using all Microsoft tools. Budget's a big concern, so we all have Office 365, so we're trying to do everything within there. Sure. We do have Project Online, and we do use Planner mostly for our people, and also have a middleware piece that synchronizes project with Planner. And we are looking at migrating to Teams to bring it kind of all together, and looking at roadmap and some of those other types of things. So we're we're hoping Microsoft keeps expanding their new project stuff and all that. So that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah. So we are filling in that white space between Planner and Project Online with the product we're calling Project for Web. Very unique name. But the nice thing about that for all those listening is those that have an Office 365 environment, there is going to be a viewer capable. It's available today within the tenant. So those people that perhaps just want to be familiar with what's going on in the project, maybe don't do the edits or statuses directly. We're calling it Project Viewer, or it's in the Office 365 admin portal. I think it's called Project for Office. And that actually fills that white space, perhaps to what you're pushing out to Planner today.
That's great. Now, Jeff, you mentioned sort of the future and the roadmap. One area that you folks can go and take a look at is the actual roadmap. I had this up here, but it's on a different screen.
I think you got enough stuff on your desktop.
Yeah, I think I need more.
Yeah,
here we are.
Nice.
So one of the areas, I mean, I'll put this in the chat too, but one place that we often go out and look at is the roadmap. So the Office 365, now coined Microsoft 365 roadmap. If you're new to the roadmap, you can go up here and get sort of tutorial of what's going on. But basically, this is a running list of everything that they're thinking of doing as far as development, what is currently launched and what is rolling out. And then on the left-hand side, you can just go down and pick all your products, whatever you're sort of looking for. And then, halfway down or so, you're going to see project. You can go ahead and just click on that, and you'll see mostly everything that's going to be in and around project. Sometimes you'll get a something with another word in here, but for most part, it's pretty good, and it's launched. Everything that's going to be in here. Now, we can talk to a few of these, that's already gone out there. I know, Steve, you talked about the roadmap that project has now out there, and that's been out there since last year, the end of last year. These newer ones, like the export to Excel from project, all of these, if you want more information about this, just simply click in here. It gives you a little bit more information on it, and you can also take the feature ID and do a search on that. The project blog is also another really helpful place for all of this information.
Jacques, I'll add that the project roadmap or project community page, or any of the Office 365 community pages, but specific to project, it is the main source of where resources for the project engineering team get deployed. So to let you guys know how real it is, I was on a community call internal to Microsoft, and I think there were about 22 of my peers on that call. So my role in all the geographies and sectors of Microsoft. And we were clearly told that if it's not on that community page as a ranked priority, it's going to be very difficult to get the engineering team to work on it. So do go out there and put your ideas. If you have access to an MPUG or to a community group, make sure other people are going out there to vote on those items. The one item that is on there that everyone should be very excited about is for Project for Web. There will be soon a MPP file import, meaning that if you have some legacy projects that are in the desktop tool and you want to move those tasks to Project for Web, my belief is in the next 30 to 90 days that capability will exist. So that's exciting.
Nice. And so, Jeff, you'd mentioned a few things there, so I just want to back up and show the one I believe you're talking about there is more the user voice for Microsoft Project.
Correct.
And that's where any user can come in here and vote. We do this all the time. You can sort by top ideas. This is user voices across all the products. We just typed in user voice and Microsoft and Project, excuse me, and then this came up.
There it is, 1,000 votes almost.
Yes. So we're getting there. The other was the blog. The blog is always also helpful. I subscribe to this, do an RS feed or follow it. Every couple weeks, I'd say something comes up here of value to me at least. And latest January blog, you can go in there and take a look. They're talking about rehashing sort of this Excel feature and a couple other things, but you can see almost on a monthly cadence, something comes up and then maybe something else pops up. So we'll go ahead and put these three things out there, the roadmap being number one, the user voice, which is very helpful, and then also the project blog. If you're still looking for things to do, I know Heather and team have put together a FAQ, or frequently asked questions, that should be out there. I think that's on the other page I had up here. And all of these, you can come out here and just click, search. We do a lot with, Jeff and Microsoft, and we hear, question from a client, we'll put it up here. So if there's something, if there's something that you see out there, we actually just pop that right in. So that one area about the project to planner sync that hopefully Microsoft's going to get on board with, we have a capability of doing that. You can get all your answers to your questions here with project to planner sync. All right. So helpful resources that are out there and in getting all that. In and around the helpful resource, I wanted to talk about Teams really quickly. I wanted to show one quick thing, and then we'll get to some more questions. We've been doing a lot and seeing a lot with bots and approvals and things like this. So just think about it within your organization. Is there a request process that you have? Is there an approval that you need to do? Well, us legacy folks out there would say, well, we need the SharePoint workflow, and we got to start tooling this in our head. Jeff mentioned earlier on that Microsoft is doing this low code or no code push, and it's really taken off with Satya and pushing the developers in this way. One of these areas is this project request area, or just approval. It can be anything, and they're very easy. It just sits on SharePoint. You can just tie right into it. Anything that you do with Power Automate, okay, which used to be called Flow, will create, if you create an approval, it will automatically be sent to Teams. So I'm not sure you knew about this, but this is what I wanted to sort of share my 2 cents. What I'm seeing around here is down under here, you can add, a bunch of apps. You can add a few of ours. You can go into and do Planner, but this is approval out of the box by Microsoft. So why am I talking about this? Because within project management, we see a lot of approvals that need to happen. And folks are really cautious when it comes to workflow because they don't want to over-architect anything. And I 100% agree. But if we can take within a Power Automate and say, hey, when a project request is created, or when I send an email to Jeff, I want to capture his approval, whatever happens to be. I do not like emails. I do not agree with that. So I was just using that as an archaic example. But in here, you can see that every one of these project requests that we have in here actually is tagged within the system. And I didn't need to do anything. I just put this little approval thing by Microsoft. It said, hey, I'm going to just listen to anything that talks to me out there. In this case, it's going to take anything from Power Automate in this case. So you have a new project request. Let's just open this one. Again, you have that sort of templatized. You can have pictures or anything. What's the comments? It can strip. This is very crude. Okay, this one just took the project request, gave you a link to it so you could go back and click on it. A button, oops, I clicked too fast. A button down below, cancel request or approved or rejected. Very easy to set these up and create whatever buttons you want. Have the workflow, again, Power Automate, in this case, do whatever you need to do. In this example, we're talking about projects and requests, bringing it into our world as portfolio or project managers.
Jacques, one example, and it's on the other end of the project lifecycle that I just heard of a manufacturer doing, is when they were deploying some of their Lean Six Sigma projects. On the back end, they actually created a mobile app, placed it obviously in Teams for those people that were on the Office 365 environment. And then for the frontline workers, which was primarily shop floor, they were actually allowing them with a mobile app to confirm that some of the Lean Six Sigma project impacts were occurring either in their their flexible work center, perhaps in their plant, whatever, location identifier they had. So they were able to say that if they're going to do a 55-minute work hour, how many of the different flexible work centers were adopting that and how many weren't. And it was a way for them to do value creation measurements, which I thought was great. It was on the back end of the process, very much like a reverse approval kind of.
Yeah, no, that's really neat, interesting. And the flexibility of having them be able to do it whenever they want to, right? With this app and wherever in that case.
Yep.
That's great. Another thing I've, sort of seen, curious, Jeff, if, you've seen this too, is this push to, Microsoft's on board with just trying to figure out where are all these tasks going, right? And I know we've had a conversation or two about this. Anything new that you've heard in and around that?
Yeah, we're making headway. So the topic that Jacques brings up is obviously tasks within Microsoft work management platform are created in many products. We've heard Planner and Project already. There's certainly tasks which often are created even historically in a SharePoint list or today in a Microsoft Teams environment. At this point in time, we still identify a task out of each product as a unique entity, meaning that they aren't all the same. They do carry different metadata with them. But I do know that, as we talked about, Planner, Project for Web, and Project Online will be able to replicate tasks so that they can coexist in all three products, and status and basic start, finish, end date stuff can be shared. I do think Teams tasks will be included in that probably by the end of our fiscal year, which is by June 30th. So we're making headway on that. I think the key, obviously, is the common data service and the ability. So those that don't know, we do publish almost all the data, or partners are publishing the data out through OData or the common data service. So that will give you that visibility. And if you haven't done it today, it's easy to throw a Power BI report across all the environments so that you can get task aggregation. You may not be able to manage tasks as a integrated item, but at least you can get visibility across all the tasks through a Power BI report.
Cool. Yeah, thanks, Jeff. That's going to be interesting to see all that and have that come through. That'll be really nice.
Yeah, the term we're using is a task fabric for the Microsoft platform. And I was, one of my favorite sayings of all time is today's technology delivers yesterday's promises. And I think we're getting close to that one.
Nice. Correct. Yeah, let's hope so. And then I guess with that, then Jeff, I can only assume that with that task fabric, right, within Teams, folks will be able to come over to the Teams task area, or whatever we're calling it today, task by planner and to do. But this will be called maybe tasks, just tasks, hopefully. And we'll be able to see across all, which we can do today, across all planner and all to-do items. Yep. And then, like you said, if you have third-party tools, you can actually sync in and grab all this stuff from Project as well. But that's going to be hopefully coming down next couple of quarters.
Yeah, so I think we're at a place where you can kind of do the radio button piece today through some work with partners like yourself. It's really the identifying of a common resource assigned to the task. Obviously, the resource pool is unique to your Active Directory or to your resource pool and project. And then the other one is obviously date sensitive stuff. To my opening remarks, one of the things I do see, which I think we all have to get back to, is the whole concept of critical path in this pandemic world has seemed to be changed quite often. And I do think maybe putting my gray hair hat on is that, I think critical path and a Gantt is still one of the more essential principles to really understand risk with regard to completion of a project. And when we see a proliferation of tasks and they're not necessarily all inter-associated with each other anymore, to actually understand a critical path and to have any certainty whether the final deadline of a project is at risk or not becomes very difficult. So I know for convenience, we're running away from a traditional desktop project schedule. And even with Project Online, we're using templates more often than ever before. But I think if there was anything I would recommend to accounts that they do is do a little bit of skills training for those people that are thrown into project management responsibilities. And the two things I would say is teach them how to run a critical path, and also teach them the difference between effort-based planning and duration-based planning. Those are the two things that I see have sort of gotten a short stick in the last year to 18 months. And I think risk is a different scenario when you use the right principles to manage it. So I think that sounds a little bit more gospel, but that's one of the things I'd love to see more of.
Yeah, it's interesting because I haven't really thought about that until you mentioned it. But yeah, we are hearing even in our requests for work, right? Things that we're getting done. We get a lot more of these quick, integrations, pulling from different areas. Let's get the tasks in. It's all around the task part of it, versus really the dependencies like you're just talking about, and the need for critical path is that'll be sort of a secondary thing we'll worry about once we can see everything we're supposed to be doing.
I mean, just what we're looking at here. If the task doesn't make it to the top of the scroll down bar, or if you're in Planner and you can't fit enough of the boxes in your view, the likelihood someone's worrying about that task off to the right in a Planner schedule or below the waterline here in a list view is really a really poor way to figure out if something is a priority or not. So
yeah.
There is a huge reason that principles of Gantt charts and critical path existed. And a lot of our competitive tools that we talked about earlier, you throw out a bunch of names, is they really don't even do any other kind of predecessor successor rules. I mean, it's basically start finish the whole way. And if anyone thought life operated start finish, that's probably not a reality for most project management, but we'll get there. But I think one of the things, I guess my takeaway of all takeaways at this topic is people should still invest in some level of skills training for their team. I know we all work remote, we all work very independently, but find a 90-minute window once a month and just get a little bit of skills training for your team on one topic each month. And that might really push you forward. And my ultimate goal is that you better understand the risk associated to your projects. And that could be resource, it could be schedule, it could be the collaborative factors. But I guess that's the ultimate thing is we're moving so fast, we're making things so easy, we're maybe losing some sophistication.
Yeah, definitely can sort of see that. And it's interesting because you have this, as we like to call it, a paradigm reshift, maybe it is. But you're talking about folks that want to get all this information up front. They want to report on it very quickly. So they're saying, okay, tool. But the tenet that I'm hearing, in this conversation, yeah, tool's great, but if tool can't show you that baseline process, then we're back to the Barney Rubble days.
Well, yeah, and I'm sorry to maybe take us off topic, but if it's not digital, meaning that if it isn't a task or it isn't documented in some sort of delivery tool, our soft side has really been eliminated. So the idea of meeting in the break room or having a physical whiteboard in an office environment that we may have previously used as a safety valve to understand the interdependencies of our work has kind of gone away. So to some extent, making things too easy and boiling things down just to a task list or to a Kanban board in Planner may introduce a lot of uncertainty that we previously managed through those human elements that unfortunately don't exist in a work from home environment.
Yeah, and I'll take it, one more step there is we had a client that came to us and they actually just all their metrics were based on a European company, were based in things that were done just trying to track tasks that were done or deliverables that were done across in office and out of office. And for them, even though that during the pandemic, most stuff is out of office, they still have all these regulatory compliance issues about folks working from home, even though a lot of people are working from home, but they have that clear delineation in some of those middle European states that say, hey, you can only work 32 hours, right? After that, you start getting fined. So they had to actually track the difference between those two. And it was very interesting because out of their mouth, yes, we'd like to get to work. Yes, we'd like to get to the baseline and all that. But this is just more of a regulatory exercise here. And we just need to see that people aren't working too much into family time, because it's a reg compliance.
Absolutely. And, our millennials are now moving into, as you said, being young parents. And the software development cycle was built around basically an elongated workday with a kind of rolling follow the sun kind of development cycles. And that has posed a problem again because of the pandemic and the millennials and the expectations they have about work-life balance, which is great. I mean, it's totally makes sense, but our assumption back to this, the traditional agile scrum burn down and effort reports we have aren't necessarily as useful in the generational shift we're seeing.
Sure. Yeah. So it's been a great conversation up to this point, Jeff. I just wanted to pause here, take a look, see if there were any other questions out there. Any live questions from anybody that's been listening? We'll just let you hop in. You're all off mute if you wanted to be. And I'm just going to...
At least one question from each person.
And then I'm going to check the questions that have been submitted. One has already been answered offline. Thank you. What did we show? Yeah, I'll re-show that. So the question was, what did I show over here in Teams? On the left-hand side, I was showing, it just hid here, but I was showing that approval. So it's the approval, and you can find it just by typing in approval. It's actually a Microsoft app out there. And that was in when we were talking about approvals and Power Automate. And the other thing, this right here, if you go ahead and search, I believe I would search for planner. Yeah, here we go. You search for task, it sometimes takes you to a different area, but this is a Microsoft out of the box team app is the other thing that we showed. Good question.
One question I get often now, and I'll say thank you very much to Microsoft and our reuse of words and names all the time, but never confuse the license with the product. So in our commercial side, how you purchase Microsoft, and I'll limit it to, collaboration work and project management stuff. If you have Office 365, you have commercial access to both Outlook and Office and Teams and all of that. Whether your organization decides to use it or not, that you'll get to that. The same exists on the project side. So we have 3 simple plans now: Plan 1, Plan 3, and Plan 5. Whether we're talking about Planner, Project for Web, or Project Online, or even desktop, those commercial types don't limit you to the products. They just kind of limit you to the level of capability you have. So simply stated, never confuse what you want to do to how you buy it. So if I ever can be helpful there, let me know. But we are kind of at a place now where it's Plan 1, Plan 3, and Plan 5. And simply stated, Plan 1 is for anything a team member or an untrained project manager might need. Plan 3 is everything the project managers would need. And Plan 5 are those things that the PMO office or portfolio manager might need. So that comes up pretty often, and people often think they can't use something because it's new and they didn't perhaps get a new license, but that's rarely the case.
Jeff, I have a question for you. I mean, get your feedback on it. I like where you're going with that, but at the same, sort of coming out of the other side of my breath, when I talk to clients, sometimes I do refer to the license itself. just because with the naming convention, right, that's out there, it's a little confusing.
Yep.
Is that something that you recommend continuing with, or
Well,
not so much?
I definitely would want to start every conversation is what it is that they're trying to manage or the type of work they're trying to, improve. And that'll arrive at the right Microsoft solution, at least to start with. And
Okay.
typically requirements grow from there.
Mhm.
From a Microsoft perspective and our customers, if you want to use a certain one of our products on our platform, in most cases, the entry level stakes to do that, you probably own that already. And if you don't, it's usually a very incremental add-on to get you to the rights in order to do that. So focus on what you want to do, and then obviously just let us know and we're going to get you there. Now, if you're talking about deployment across hundreds of users or 100 users or more, we're not going to let price be the obstacle, and that's where we can, as solution specialists, get a little bit more creative with the account team. The way Microsoft organization works is, as a solution specialist, my goal is and mandate is to help customers know what products do what and which ones are going to solve their problems. I work on your behalf as an account to go to the Microsoft account team and say, here's how this customer may be able to budget this. And we don't usually say no because of cost. So we'll figure out a way to make that work. But I would say that starting with the product license, not naming convention, is not necessarily the best option. Only because it changes often, and it's not a 1-for-1. So not a 1-to-1 match.
Sure. Gotcha. Excellent. Well, I'm enjoying this conversation, Jeff. Thanks for.
All day, Jack. We've done this before.
Yeah, this is good though. With a lot of the other things that are coming on, I have been playing with. Jeff mentioned the Excel feature that you can start importing now into Project for the Web. That's got its merits in some different use cases that are out there. For those, again, for the tool, a question came across. So what's new? The other question is, or the other answer is, you can have local fields. That's been for a few months now, but not everybody has been doing that. So you can have localized fields in the Project for the Web tool, which is nice. You can add different fields in there. And then my other, some of my other big wins that I've been seeing or just using personally, stem on what Jeff was saying earlier, is no code, low code. If there's some repetitive task that I'm doing, even whether it's managing a program or even reaching out to our consultants, need to streamline it. So I immediately try to figure out what the best way to do that is. And, there's brilliant people out there that have already done this. So I just do a quick search, for a Power Automate to, do something, whatever it happens to be. And I just did one the other day about, again, I mentioned I'm not a big email fan. So I push everything off to Teams, and that's where I'm seeing things. So if there's something that comes over from a client, I'll get a little warning that says, hey, you just received something from a client, and then I'll go ahead and check that at some point. So again, I'm more focused over in this Teams world when I'm managing my teams, but also the different clients, which are our projects, if you think about it that way. Anything, Jeff? I know there's was discussion on the project operation side of the house.
Yeah.
You see anything going there? Any legs on the new developments over there?
So what Jack brings up is with our legacy Dynamics platform, which is really Microsoft to go big picture. We managed 3 clouds. We have our business productivity cloud, which is really what you guys all would think of as Office 365 and Teams, everything that allows an individual or team to be more productive. We have Azure, which is our cloud storage environment and all of the app dev to support that. And then the last big cloud we have is Dynamics, and Dynamics is our business applications. And, whenever you're talking about the data that is driving a commercial enterprise, that is Dynamics. So what Jacques brings up is that for project management purposes, where it might be anything order driven, so sales order, work order, change order, field order, you can probably come up with others. Those are very often related to a business cycle associated to Dynamics. And we have a project management module which sits within Dynamics called Project Ops. And because now so much project management is being done in the Project for Web and the Common Data Service, those two environments are coming very close together. So if you are an organization that uses Dynamics for some of your core business processes, I would strongly encourage you get up to speed on Project Operations, which has received a lot of new attention in the last 12 months. And I think you're going to find that a lot of the stuff that you might want to do in what would have called previous Project Desktop probably could be done in Project Operations out of Dynamics now. And it's going to be a little bit more extensible because it is built on the Dataverse, or what we call the Common Data Service. And it's a lot more flexible and extensible and all of that. And again, if you do have Dynamics from your organization's perspective, from a licensing perspective, you probably already own the rights to that. So knowing what you have access to is usually really important.
Perfect. Thanks, Jeff.
Sure.
Excellent. Well, we are coming down to our hour here. If there are any other questions, you can go ahead and submit those there. If you're watching this on our YouTube channel afterwards, you can always reach out to Jeff and me. We'll put it down below. There'll be a little link here that you can go ahead and click on and get our information. We also wanted some feedback. So for the folks that are watching this in a replay situation that weren't able to get any questions, there's also a right down below, you can snag that and go ahead and click on that URL, and that will enable you to ask questions, but also provide a little bit more information on this. You know, did you find value? What do you want to hear next? Is there a certain aspect of project management or actually tool technology that you want us to discuss the next time? We're really here for you. I love talking to Jeff. You know, he always got some bright things bringing to the table, makes me think and get outside my daily routine. But again, we came together to do this for you. The two organizations say, let's turn this around. We're just getting started. This is our first one. So we'll see how, you know, the next ones go. And really, any questions that you have, you can submit them at any point. Again, you'll have Jeff and my contact information. Jeff, anything else you want to recap on?
Nope, we're good to go. Good luck, everybody.
All right. Well, have a wonderful day. For those folks that are experiencing a little white stuff out there, shovel well and lift with your legs. Well, have a great day. Thanks, Jeff, for joining us. Have a great day.